You're listening to the Telltale Channel. In this podcast, if you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check out my Patreon. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon.
There's no question that President Trump is the president of peace and deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for the historic achievements of his first term alone.
You what? You think he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize? Because he's the president of peace? This is the guy who announced that he intends to invade Panama. And I believe that that's absolutely 100% real. Do I think he's going to invade Greenland? No, I don't, because there would be serious consequences for that, economic and otherwise. France said that they were going to put troops in Greenland to protect it. I think he knows better than to attack Greenland, but I think if he believed he could get away with it, he absolutely would. The point is that he talks about going to war all the time. He declared war on the cartels in Mexico, justified legally bombing Mexico. Like, really? He started trade wars, like countless trade wars. He's the president of peace? Where is your head? Where did you get this? This is just fictitious trash. I'll tell you who I think deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, there's a guy named Elie Wiesel. He wrote a book titled Night. It was about his experience in Auschwitz in the concentration camp, the Nazi concentration camp. He received a Nobel Peace Prize and gave a speech on it and everything. He deserved it. What did Donald Trump do to deserve it? Did he spend time in a concentration camp? Did he, as a prisoner is what I mean. Sorry, not as like the administrator, but as a prisoner. Has he done that? Has Donald Trump actually ended any wars? Has he actually improved people's lives materially? Has he spread democracy legitimately through the world without like imposing it on people or whatever? No. He's engaged in colonialism, in imperialism. He has threatened people and ruined lives and is shipping people to a concentration camp, a literal concentration camp in Guantanamo Bay right now. Where in that equation do you get Nobel Peace Prize? I mean, she wasn't the only one that suggested the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, I don't get what it is about people recommending a Nobel Peace Prize for Donald Trump of all people.
To you all,
This is another CPAC speaker.
the American taxpayer, to recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been invested in this war. Because you know what? Europe's contributions are? Europe's contributions are in the form of loans.
This is all lies. Pretty much everything that he's saying here is Russian propaganda. He's repeating Russian propaganda, as has Donald Trump. Trump repeated Russian propaganda about Ukraine. The money that we send, or the supplies or whatever that we send to Ukraine, is the best money that we have ever spent. We are discrediting a historical adversary, a country that views themselves as an adversary of ours. Not something that I want. It's something that Putin is saying. He says he's an adversary of the United States. It discredits them on a world stage and proves that they're not anywhere near as strong as they want everybody to think. They can't even take on little Ukraine, their neighbor. Third strongest military in the world, Anyway, the point is that it's the best money we've ever spent. We are, and most of the money that we're sending, it's not even money, it's in supplies that we are manufacturing in the US. So the money that we're spending is going to guns, which are manufactured here and then sent to Ukraine. So all that money is going back into our economy. It's well spent. So don't listen to any of this trash straight out of Putin's mouth.
And they're often paid back on the interest on Russian assets that have been frozen. So Europe gets paid back, but the American people don't.
Not how it works. Complete nonsense, but okay.
I don't think so, right? And so that's the deal that we're putting in place. That's good for everyone. And yes, you have to talk to the Russian side to understand how we're going to get both sides to the table. And that's...
Well, that wasn't the complaint. If you're watching this 5 years in the future, the complaint is that the United States met with Russia to negotiate the Ukraine war without inviting Ukraine. They weren't even there. Why would they have this negotiation without Ukrainian representatives? That's the problem. I don't have a problem with you speaking to Russia, but don't pick up their propaganda and include everybody in the conflict in the negotiations. Again, it's all lies all the way down, but the point is at the end of this video here.
We're doing. Look, this is the common sense presidency. This is the presidency of peace. He's going to end the war in Europe. He is going to end the wars in the Middle East. He is going to reinvest the United States and our leadership in our own hemisphere, from the Arctic to the border to Panama, all the way down to our good friends in Argentina with Milei that you saw yesterday. And you know what? By the end of this all, we're going to have the Nobel Peace Prize sitting next to the name of Donald J. Trump. And who opposes peace? Like, I mean, how do the Democrats oppose peace?
You see what I'm saying, right? Who opposes peace? He says Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and who opposes peace? You can't oppose Trump because he is in favor of peace. Are you shitting me right now? What has Trump done that has, like, promoted peace? What are you talking about? Point is, I don't know, like, where they're getting this. I think that this is just something that Trump wants. Like, he just really wants the Nobel Peace Prize. So he's getting people out there to talk about it, to promote it, to put him up, you know, for a nomination or whatever. Nominate him for the Peace Prize. Complete nonsense. He doesn't deserve the Peace Prize. And if there is a just world, he will never have the Nobel Peace Prize, ever. You know, Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm not even convinced that Obama deserved it. Obama got the prize, I believe, because he was the first black president, and it showed that it was kind of like the end of an era, the end of an era of segregation and oppression and everything else. I mean, obviously, there's still segregation and oppression in the United States, but it was a big step. Obama probably didn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize because of all the drone attacks that he did. Like, he did so many drone attacks. He wasn't a president of peace by any stretch of the imagination. Like, it was really bad. Really bad. But he certainly deserves it more than, say, Donald Trump, who doesn't deserve it at all. And it's like an embarrassment that somebody would even recommend this, would suggest such a thing. Let's just, like, listen to a minute or two of Elie Wiesel talk, like, giving his Nobel Peace Prize speech. He received it and gave the speech, I believe, in 1986.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highnesses, Starting President Joe Benkov, distinguished members of the government and parliament, Chief Rabbi of Norway, Bishop of Oslo, Excellencies, my sister Hilda, and of course my wife.
I'm going to cut out the silent parts. I'm just going to include, like, the parts that are important and relevant.
How can I thank you for the depth of your eloquence, for the generosity of the gesture coming from you and your colleagues? How can I thank you for building bridges between generations, names, and people? How can I thank you all for helping humanity make peace as its most urgent, as its most noble aspiration? For this is what you are doing, and there is nothing that is worthier of our respect and our affection for you. I am moved, deeply moved, by your meaningful and warm words, Chairman Orwick. And it is with a profound sense of humility that I accept the honor, the highest there is, that you have chosen to bestow upon me.
It's probably why Donald Trump wants it, because it's viewed as an honor.
I know your choice transcends my person. Do I have the right to represent the multitudes who have perished, of whom you have spoken? Do I have the right to accept this great honor on their behalf? Does anyone? I do not. No one may speak for the dead. No one may interpret their mutilated dreams and visions. And yet, at moments such as this, at all moments, I sense their presence. I always do. The presence of my parents, that of my little sister.
If I remember correctly, he tells his story in his book, Night, but I believe his little sister died at the concentration camp. His dad died at the camp also. Man, it was just, God, he's got like a really hard story.
How can I not sense the presence of those that were part of you, friends, teachers, companions? But this honor belongs to those who remember them. This honor belongs to all the survivors, to their children, and through us, to the Jewish people, with whose destiny I have always identified.
I believe that in his book, or in the foreword to his book at least, he said he doesn't believe in God anymore because of what happened to him, because he saw so many people die, because he was working in the camp by forced slave labor while the ashes of his sister and his mom and his other family rained down on him from the crematorium chimney. It would, I get, it would be hard to believe in God after some like that. This guy got the Nobel Peace Prize, and he deserved it. What has Donald Trump done to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Has he done anything like this at all? Like anything even close, even like approximating something like what Elie Wiesel has experienced?
I remember. It happened yesterday or eternities ago. A young Jewish boy discovered the kingdom of night. I remember his bewilderment. I remember his anguish. It all happened so fast. The ghetto, the decrees, the persecutions, the deportation, the sealed cattle car, the fiery altar upon which the history of my people and the future of mankind were meant to be sacrificed. I remember that young boy asked his father, "Tell me," he said, "can this be true? This is the 20th century after all. This is not the Middle Ages. Who would allow such crimes to be committed? And how could the world remain silent?" And now that very boy is turning to me. "Tell me," he says, "what have you done with my years? What have you done with your life, which is mine?"
So he's imagining himself as a young boy sitting in Auschwitz, talking to his adult self, saying, "What have you done with the time that you received after exiting the camp? What have you done with the time that people died to give you back, which was stolen by the Nazis?"
And then I tell him that I have tried to keep memory alive, that I have tried to fight those who forget, because as you have said, if we forget, we are guilty, we are accomplices, we could not prevent their death the first time. But if we forget them, they will be killed the second time. And this time it will be our responsibility. So I also explained to that boy who was asking me questions how naive he was, how naive we all were. The world did know and remained silent.
They did, absolutely.
And that is why I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must speak. We must take sides. For neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant.
When there's terrible suffering, borders become irrelevant. We shouldn't care where people are from or what their background is or who they are, whatever. We should care about helping.
Wherever men or women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe. Of course, since I am a Jew profoundly rooted in my people's memory and tradition, my first response is to Jewish fears, Jewish needs, Jewish crises. For I belong to a traumatized generation, one that experienced the abandonment and solitude of my people. It would be unnatural for me not to make Jewish priorities my own. It would be unnatural for me not to love Israel with all my heart as I do. Please remember what I remember.
So what he's doing here, he's about to criticize Israel, basically. He's about to say Israel is doing something really terrible to the Palestinians and it needs to be examined. And I know that Israel will do the right thing and back off. That's basically what he said. I think, is he still alive? There's no way he's still alive, is there? He died 2016 at 87.
Israel, if God forbid defeated, it would be the end of Israel. The only country in the world which is so endangered, totally in its existence.
You know, like Israel was in a lot of ways just as bad at the time as they are today. One of the big problems is that like Israel conflates being Jewish with being Israeli. It's an ethno-state. They believe themselves to be the only legitimate like rulers or politicians or whatever in the country. So they exclude everybody else from the democratic process. That's nationalistic and that's destructive as it gets. Elie Wiesel, at the time in 1986, felt that Israel was like the last stand. Like if some goes down like it has historically against the Jews, then they will be safe in Israel, or they can fight from Israel at the very least. But Israel is perpetrating the exact same horrors that the Nazis perpetrated in World War II. So now, you know, and even back then, there's no excuse.
How can we, people such as myself, not think in these terms? But I am also, of course, committed to Soviet Jews who need freedom and Jews in Arab lands who need solidarity. But I said that Jewish priorities are my first priorities. They are not exclusive. Others are important to me. Other people, other ideas, other situations, other tragedies matter to me. Believe me that apartheid
in South Africa, right? It hadn't come to an end yet. That didn't end until 1991, I think.
Is in my view as abhorrent as anti-Semitism. To me, Andrei Sakharov's isolation is as much of a disgrace as Yosef Biegun's imprisonment and Ida Nudel's exile, as is the denial of solidarity and its leader Lech Wałęsa's right to dissent, and Nelson Mandela's interminable imprisonment.
Nelson Mandela, the leader, or was a civil rights leader in South Africa during apartheid. I think he was the first black president after apartheid collapsed and a new government with a new constitution formed, if I remember correctly. I think Mandela also got a Nobel Peace Prize, and it was very much deserved in his case. Elie Wiesel goes on to say that he cares about the Palestinians' suffering too. Super respectable. He's written about this at length and was just a respectable person. He deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. Again, what did Donald Trump do to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize precisely? What did Trump do for that?
There is no question that President Trump is the president of peace and deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for the historic achievements of his first term alone.
What did he do in his first term to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? What did he do in his first term that is even close to a little bit comparable to what Elie Wiesel did?
There is so much injustice and suffering crying out for our attention. Victims of hunger, of racism, and political persecution. Certain fascist regimes, like in Chile, or Marxist regime, like in Ethiopia and in other places of the world. where writers and poets are prisoners. And there are so many prisoners in so many lands, by the left, by the extreme left, and by the right, the extreme right. Now, you know, as I do, that human rights are being violated on every continent. More people are oppressed than free. How can one not be sensitive to their plight? Human suffering anywhere concerns men and women everywhere. And in spite of what some extreme critics have said about me, that principle applies in my life also to the Palestinians, to whose plight I am sensitive, but whose methods I deplore when they lead to violence. Violence is not the answer. Terrorism is the most dangerous of answers. I know they are frustrated, and that is understandable, and something must be done about it. The refugees in the refugee camps and their misery, the children and their fear, the uprooted and their hopelessness. I know something must be done about their situation. I know that too. Both the Jewish people and the Palestinian people have lost too many sons and shed too much blood. This must stop, and all attempts to stop it must be encouraged peacefully. Israel will cooperate. I am sure of that. I trust Israel, for I have faith in the Jewish people.
Well, he was incorrect, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, and he lived long enough to see that. 2016, Israel was just as monstrous as ever in 2016. It's just like really horrific and sad. There's nothing that's going to fix it. Until Israel basically stops being an ethno-state and absolutely like ultra-nationalist nutcases, that's what's going to happen. They just have to give up their ultra-nationalist roots. That's it.
Let Israel be given a chance. Let hatred and danger be removed from her horizons, and there will be peace in and around the Holy Land. Yes, I have faith. I have faith in God, in the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. I even have faith in his creation. Without faith, no action would be possible, and action is the only remedy to indifference.
The point is that the guy cares about solving the human suffering problem. He used his platform as a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize to try to draw attention to the most horrific parts of society, of human society in that moment. Again, I ask, what did Donald Trump do that deserves the Nobel Peace Prize precisely?
Down to our good friends in Argentina with Milei that you saw yesterday. And you know what? By the end of this all, we're going to have the Nobel Peace Prize sitting next to the name of Donald J. Trump. And who opposes peace? Like, I mean, how do the Democrats oppose peace?
What did he do to deserve that? The answer is nothing. He doesn't deserve the Peace Prize. He will never deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. If there's something opposite of the Nobel Peace Prize, maybe he deserves that. The exact opposite. The Nobel, I've f***ed everything up for everybody prize. Anyways, just like disgusting. Just really disgusting that anybody would even suggest such a thing. That Trump gets a Nobel Peace Prize. Just bad. Tell me what you think in the comments. Let's just listen to a little bit more of this, though.
Indifference, the most insidious danger and disease of all. Isn't this the meaning of Alfred Nobel's legacy? Wasn't his fear of war a shield against war? There is so much to be done, and there is much that can be done. I have learned it in my life. One person, a Raoul Wallenberg, for instance, an Albert Schweitzer, a Martin Luther King, one person of integrity, of courage, can make a difference.
Martin Luther King, that was really interesting. He shouted him out.
A difference of life and death.
Like all of the people on the list who deserve Nobel Peace Prizes or have been nominated for them or have received them or whatever are people or are the types of people that Donald Trump attacks and hates and spews vile garbage about them. Why does he think he fits in with this group of people? And you know what's really sad about it? The fact that Donald Trump has been nominated in the first place by multiple people, multiple times. He's been nominated for the prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. That is just sad.
And therefore, I know that as long as one dissident is in prison, our freedom will not be true. As long as one child is hungry, our lives will be filled with anguish and shame. For I have seen children hungry. What all these victims need, above all, is to know that they are not alone, that we are not forgetting them, that when their voices are stifled, we shall lend them ours, that while their freedom depends on ours, the quality of our freedom depends on theirs. So this is what I say to the young Jewish boy wondering what I have done with his years. It is in his name that I speak to you and that I express to you my deepest gratitude. You should know that no one is capable of gratitude as one who has emerged from that kingdom of night.
No one is capable of gratitude if they haven't emerged from that kingdom of night. He's talking about, his book was called Night, and it was basically about the darkest moment in human history, the darkest moment in his own history. Those who have not experienced true, deep grief, danger, and pain. He's saying they won't be able to experience true gratitude. I don't know if that's true, but I get the sentiment he's laying down for us here.
Know that every moment is a moment of grace. Every hour is an offering. And not to share them would mean to betray them and mean not to be worthy of them. Our lives no longer belong to us, no longer belong to us alone. They belong to all those who need us desperately. And therefore I say thank you, Chairman Egil Aarvik, and thank you, the very distinguished members of the Nobel Committee. And thank you, people of Norway. Thank you, people of Norway, for declaring on this singular occasion that our survival has meaning for mankind.
Yeah, that's the end of the speech. Trump is not even in the same ballpark as Elie Wiesel. Not even close. They have nothing in common. Nothing. They stand for two completely different, ideologies, two completely different, beliefs, two different everythings. And Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I think that Trump has only been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 4 times. I mean, 4 is way more. It's 4 more than it should have been, but Trump's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for the 4th time, a recognition prompted by his role in brokering the historic Abraham Accords. This is January 31st, 2024 is when this article was written. Trump did not broker the Abraham Accords, and the Abraham Accords did not bring peace to the Middle East. The Abraham Accords were basically just a deal to get, I believe, the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, a little country in the Middle East there. They got the UAE to trade openly with Israel. They opened trade partnership or whatever. And that was a big deal because nobody in the Middle East wants to work with Israel because of what they're doing to Palestine right now. And that was shot to shit when Israel ramped up their genocide against the Palestinians. So Trump likes to claim he brokered peace in the Middle East, but A, that didn't even work. The Abraham Accords didn't stick, and they didn't even do that much in the first place. Great, one country is openly trading with them. Fantastic. And B, Trump didn't even do the deal. I believe it was Jared Kushner who kind of, worked this whole deal out in the first place. So he doesn't deserve it at all. Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney spearheaded the nomination, emphasizing Trump's instrumental role in the signing of the Abraham Accords in September 2020. These accords aimed to normalize relations between Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. with later agreements involving Morocco and Sudan. Tenney highlighted Trump's unprecedented efforts in facilitating new peace agreements in the Middle East, challenging long-standing beliefs that such agreements were unattainable without resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Yeah, so obviously it was attainable, but it was going to crumble. It's going to fall apart, like nearly instantaneously. The moment the genocide ramps up again, it's going to fall apart. And it did, as predicted. It was pointless for Donald Trump to do this or to take part in this or whatever. And everybody knew that. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. I just don't get how these poor, ridiculous, dumb fools can say these things with a straight face.
But by the end of this all, we're going to have the Nobel Peace Prize.
How do they say this? Tell me what you think in the comments. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. This is Johnny Enlow, and he is a Trump theologist. He believes that Trump is the Son of Man, the Messiah. Not joking. Listen to what he had to say here. This is from early February 2025.
The apostolic clarity that's coming right now is coming from King Donald Trump, but it extends even over the church because he is a fellow believer, and every single one of his values that he lays out there are biblical values. Apostle Trump.
Yeah.
Listen.
Apostle Trump. He is a Trump theologist, believes that he is tantamount to God. Shane Vaughn is another Trump theologist, and I covered the Trump theology in another video. If you guys want to see it, I believe it may have released, it released sometime this week. Anyway, these people genuinely believe that Donald Trump is basically like a replacement Jesus. Like he's fulfilling the role that Jesus was supposed to fulfill when he returns, the Son of Man. They're calling him Apostle Trump.
Go with Prophet Elon. There's some things the Lord showed me. Archangel Michael is working very closely with Trump.
That's wild, dude. Prophet Elon and King Trump.
Archangel Gabriel working very closely with Elon.
That is absolutely wild. Now, if Johnny Enlow believes that Trump is the Son of Man, as he does, I'm trying to figure out where Elon fits into all of this. Like, imagine Jesus fit into this scenario. Where would Elon be relative to Jesus? I would think that Elon would be getting messages from Jesus to give to the rest of the world. I'm not really sure where all these people are situated in Johnny Enlow's head. Anyway, like I said, it's a full-blown theology. Enlow talked about the Trump test, quote unquote. This one is from early June 2021.
Even if you think you have 100% devotion to God, it's going to cost you. And this is a key time. Once we establish what a key time in history this is a line in the sand. This Trump test, it's been clearer than ever. People I've interviewed, I've been on their programs and stuff, and who's being advanced and blessed, and ministries that are advancing and blessing, and who I see an increased anointing and who are seeing more. They're seeing more favor. They're seeing more revelatory, are people who didn't back off Trump.
So he believes God is blessing people who believe in Donald Trump, like on a theological level. When this video came out, it was about 6 months after inauguration, 5 or 6. And Enlow believed that Trump was secretly pulling levers behind the scenes like a puppet master. Like he held the reins of government and Biden was the figurehead, basically the fake president. And it goes back to this kind of complicated pseudo-legal, pseudo-historical nonsense that QAnon has been latched onto for a while. And it goes like this. In 1865, when the Union rejoined with the Confederacy, they believe that they rejoined into the corporation of the United States rather than the United States government. And they think that the last U.S. government president that we had was I think Ulysses S. Grant would have been the last one. Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, 17 presidents or something. And they believe that Donald Trump was chosen to be like the first president of the United States government in, 100 and something years. They believe that all laws or all constitutional amendments or whatever passed after that moment, after the rejoining of the Union and the Confederacy, are null and void. And Inauguration Day was changed from March 4th to January 20th, sometime in the early 1900s, I think. And that fell into that category of nullified laws. So they believed that Trump was going to be reinstated on March 4th, 2021. And they really revved us up about it. Like Enloe, Shane Vaughn, and Robin Bullock, and Kat Kerr, and a bunch of others talked it up and said it's happening. It's going to, go the way we want it to. Trump is going to get into office. He's going to walk in and sit down at the Resolute desk, and he's going to force Biden out on his all this other crazy stuff. And of course, it never happened. These people, if there's one thing I know for sure, is that not only do they not see reality the way that it is, but they can't reconcile with the fact that they get it wrong consistently. Like when something doesn't happen the way you think it should, when it happens to me, I reassess the way that I view the world. I reassess the way that my perception is structured to try to bring it in line with like what, is actually happening in the world. And what did these people do? They put out the Trump test video. We're going through a test right now. You just have to trust Trump. You have to trust in him that he will become the president again. I know it didn't happen on March 4th, like I said, but it's definitely going to happen. This is 3 months after that failed, and he's given us the Trump test. There's this classic. This is the Hinge of the Ages prophecy, where he basically calls Trump the Messiah.
I was asking the Lord about it. He hadn't told me. And I was like, Lord, you still haven't showed me. And then on March, right when I'm saying that, I have this, it's not an open vision, but it was a vision.
Open vision is where you're physically seeing things in front of you. Closed vision is where you close your eyes and you see it in your mind's eye, or you're sleeping and you dream this vision or whatever. So he saw a vision, not an open one, but a vision.
And in the vision, I see this circular mountain that goes up, and there's a path all the way up. And at the top is Donald Trump, and he's on a motorcycle. And he's on a motorcycle, and he's making a lot of noise with it.
Like, look at his wife over here. She's looking at him as though she's looking right through him. She's staring at him like she's seeing Donald Trump rather than Johnny Enloe for while he tells this story about Trump. And she thinks it's so cute and funny that he's revving a motorcycle. So quirky.
Yeah, red, white, and blue bandana on his head. And so in an instant, it wasn't hard for me to figure out what was being said. It's the only time I've ever, while seeing a vision, actually talked out loud. And I go, oh no, because I was like, this means this is not going to be a peaceful exchange. This is not a peaceful transition we're going.
So this came out in 2019. He was referring to the 2020 transition. He's saying that Donald Trump was going to take power by force in 2020, and he was going to basically turn the United States into New Israel and God's kingdom on earth and all that other.
Into this is something more. And then I was brought in real close to the motorcycle, and it was triumph, which was further confirmation. And so I was like, Lord, as I'm saying that, the first thing he said is, he is going to save you from things you don't know you need to be saved from yet. And then the Lord progressively began to speak regarding that. And he said, this time in the presidency is going to be a hinge of the ages and be known as before Trump and after Trump because of the way I'm going to use him. I'm using him as a Trump card, but I'm the Trump card player. And so your nation will be known as before Trump and after Trump. And he said, the nations will be known as before Trump, after Trump. And the Lord, it was like.
So he's saying we're going to stop using a system based on Jesus, BC and AD, and we're going to move to a system based on Donald Trump, BT and AT, he said, before Trump, after Trump. That is disconnected from reality in ways I cannot even articulate. Also, if you notice, he's phrasing things in a way that it sounds like it could be coming out of the Bible. And the Lord began to speak to me regarding that, and he said, who speaks like that in real life? Nobody. He's probably not even doing it in a deceitful way. He's probably saying it in a way that he believes that his words will be recorded down the line, and he wants it to have that King James flourish or something. Because he thinks that's apparently like God's like linguistic style. God speaks like King James.
I'm really not interested in your all's vote this time. I'm doing it.
God said, I'm not interested in your vote this time in 2020. I'm doing it.
I usually give you all that option. This time I'm not. This is a rescue operation from heaven. This is a moment of the ages. This will go down. This time period will go down as a before and after AD, but BC AD, depending on what terminology you use now.
He thinks God was removing our democracy in 2020. Again, this came out in 2019, so a whole year before the election. He believed God was going to revoke our democracy and install Trump in 2020. And when it didn't happen, he came up with a new explanation for why. That was early December 2019, about 10 months before voting happened, give or take, 11 months maybe. And 2 years and 1 month later, on January 21st, 2022, Johnny Enlow tries to explain this prophecy away.
From heaven's standpoint, Trump is the number one government official on planet Earth. He is the president.
Not in the United States, on planet Earth.
Not just of the United States. He is God's president for Earth at this time. But his assignment, people like, when is he going to be there? In this, the seat where Biden is way less important than people know. At some point, yes, that seat will be back.
Then why does he care if Trump is in that seat in that case? He threw the biggest fit over the past 3-4 years or whatever that Donald Trump wasn't in the seat. And now he's saying it's just completely unimportant, doesn't even matter? Didn't God tell you he was going to have that seat?
Officially where it's supposed to. I don't know the timing of it. I had no idea of the full picture, the full range of everything that needed to be corrected and then brought into alignment with the kingdom of God. When I was getting the original prophetic words on it, my initial stuff was the world will be known as before and after Trump.
Oopsie daisy. Just picked a whole bouquet of oopsie daisies on that one, didn't he?
He comes in, and I was even looking at my prophetic word from 4 years ago. It's going to be an 8-year operation for that to happen. And so when we understand that there are people that are not just more powerful than the president of the United States, they're more powerful than the United States is, right?
I don't know what that means, who he could be talking about. Like what? I think he went on to claim that BlackRock was more powerful than the United States or something. No, not even a little bit, not even close. Anyway, the point is that these people believe that Donald Trump is the Messiah. To take it a step further, Enlow said he believed that Trump had what was called the Cyrus anointing. Oh, this ties into the Trump theology video. If you haven't seen it, it just released like a couple days before this one. Anyway, in 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar, the leader of Babylon, invades Judea and Israel area, captures a bunch of people from Judea, which was full of Jews, gets a bunch of Jews, enslaves them, and everything else. And I believe in 538 BCE, if I remember correctly. I wrote about this at length, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're interested, Amazon and Audible. Also wrote a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? Check that one out. It's can all be found on owenmorgan.com or Amazon Audible. Anyway, in my book, I wrote about this, and I think it was 538 BCE. King Cyrus of the Persians comes in, captures Babylon, releases the Jews from slavery, and allows them to go back home. Now, in the Bible, there was a big exodus where they all returned back to Judea. In reality, that didn't happen. It was a slow trickle because the people that were there had families. A lot of them were second generation slaves and things like that. Anyway, Cyrus is the important part. He wasn't a Christian. He wasn't a Jewish person. Well, obviously, he wasn't a Christian. They didn't exist yet. But he wasn't Jewish. He wasn't affiliated at all. But he freed them anyway. So Enloe is about to tell us that Trump has the Cyrus anointing. Give this a listen.
President Trump is still the Cyrus.
By the way, this is from mid-July 2021. This is like 6 months after inauguration of Biden.
And he still has unfinished business. And we've gone in depth on that before. And he still has the Isaiah 45 assignment to take down Babylon, which for our purposes represents the deep state. It is much more embedded in a much wider root system than we possibly imagined, maybe.
Okay, wow. So Babylon is like the FBI and the EPA and like US aid and stuff. Is that who Babylon's supposed to be? Then in this scenario, who are the Jews that were captured and put into captivity? Like, who is Cyrus supposed to be rescuing from like the EPA? I don't understand.
And so the timetable is driven by God. You know, there's an aspect of people ask why we don't know that the prophetic doesn't get those things. There's a whole lot of things that the Lord is not revealing. It's not just because they're bad prophets. You can't say things you don't see. And the more you understand what's going on, it would literally mess up strategy of
God has to strategize, so he's limiting who knows what. Really? You trying to tell me that God doesn't want to tell anybody his plan? The dude that wrote the f***ing Bible and made it available to everybody and their brother? He doesn't want to like lay down strategy? Okay.
how the Lord is doing it. You know, if he's using certain individuals in the world and certain leadership and certain militaries to do things, and we're telling all the secrets and timing, it really, you know, we have heard that actually we'll say from the other side, even witches and warlocks are telling, we'll say deep staters, they're not hearing anything. And so.
What? Did you catch that? Did you catch what he just said? Witches and warlocks. Oh, I'm sorry. One more time.
Militaries to do things, and we're telling all the secrets and timing. It really, you know, we have heard that actually we'll say from the other side, even witches and warlocks are telling, we'll say deep staters, they're not hearing anything. And so,
you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, I posted something on my YouTube, like community posts the other day. This is from CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network. Witches report their spells against Trump aren't working. Quote, he has a shield. Witches are reporting this to the news, apparently. Or the witches are calling Pat Robertson and complaining and telling him, demanding that he tell God to take down Trump's shield. Like, what kind of fantasy land are these people in that they would even write such a ridiculous thing? This was a real, quote unquote, news story on CBN. Seriously. Those are the types of people we're dealing with here, okay? So Enloe says that witches and warlocks are telling him or others, they're reporting that the deep state, what?
Witches and warlocks are telling, we'll say deep staters, they're not hearing anything. And so
they're not hearing anything on the deep staters?
They are told to listen in on the prophetics, on the prophetic channels.
Oh, witches and warlocks are told to listen in on the prophetic channels. Oh my God, I forgot about how hilarious this one is.
The prophets to hear what's going on. So the Lord's not going to give them anything that helps them know what to do.
Oh my God, dude. Witches and warlocks are listening in on prophetic channels, and God doesn't want his strategy to be blown. So he's not telling anybody anything. These people are for real. Somebody says, don't hurt yourself trying to make it work.
To fight, how to stay in there longer.
Oh my God, dude. That is like really entertaining. I'm sorry. There is something so deeply entertaining about that. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon.
Do you actually work for ICE?
No, not at all. Nope.
Explain the outfit.
It's $29.99 on Amazon. I would recommend buying a small if you're my size. This one's a little too loose for my liking. But yeah, if you want some entertainment, wear this and go to a Home Depot in a sanctuary city like where I live right now, Washington, D.C., and you'll see all the illegals, not all of them, but you can maybe see a lot of them start to run away, and you feel like a group fitness instructor. It's really good.
And you actually think that's funny?
I think it's hilarious. Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys remember this dude. Brandon Fellows is his name. He was a January 6er. Sat behind Fauci at a hearing and made stupid faces. Complete piece of trash.
What's not funny is them illegally.
There you have it,
Oh, I love it. He cut him off.
everybody. One of the worst people I've seen here at CPAC, and that's saying something. Appreciate it.
Wow, dude. He went to CPAC, and that's just the best. I love that. That is an absolutely debased, bottom-of-the-barrel thing to do.
How did he get in? That's the big question being asked today about the guy seated right behind Dr. Anthony Fauci during that heated hearing about the pandemic on Capitol Hill. He kept mugging for the camera during the most serious moments, and wait till you hear who he turned out to be. Megan Alexander reports.
Who let this guy in? A knucklehead made mocking gestures as he sat right behind Dr. Anthony Fauci during yesterday's fiery congressional hearing.
The vast majority of Americans appreciate your work over the years.
Look what happens as Fauci speaks emotionally about threats to his family.
They've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
Incredibly, the guy doing all that mugging is 30-year-old Brandon Fellows. And get this, he was released from federal prison just 2 weeks ago after serving 3 years for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
How stupid can you be to do something like that? To show up to the Capitol again like that and, cause problems and make a spectacle of yourself and everything? My God, dude.
Here he is that day in a senator's office in a bizarre disguise, smoking weed. Fellows is a former logger from upstate New York. He received a stiff prison term in part because he insisted on calling his trial judge a Nazi. Not a good idea.
Wow, that was genius. Fantastic job, you dumb son of a bitch.
The judge told him to grow up and tacked an extra 5 months on his sentence. He was later ordered out of the
He never grew up, spoiler alert.
hearing, shouting that Fauci should be in prison.
What is that? Do we need to listen to that? Okay.
He was escorted out.
Yeah. Okay, good.
There is uproar on social media. You'd think a convicted J6 terrorist would be banned for life by Capitol Police, one posted. And this, a seat right behind Dr. Fauci? How? Dr. Fauci is asking the same question.
What's somebody like that doing at a hearing about COVID?
Congressional.
Problem is that this dude, again, I'm assuming it's the same person as was interviewed by the Good Liars. I believe it's the same guy. Anyway, the problem is that the government is peppered with extremists that want to wreak havoc. And in this case, there was somebody in the government in a position that could allow this dude into that room to sit behind Fauci. There was somebody in the government that was sympathetic to him, peppered through the government. I don't even think it's most people in the United States or in government. In fact, I think Trump supporters make up a very small subset of the population. If I had to guess, I would guess roughly the same number of people that adhered to the Nazi ideology in World War II, probably about 15 to 20%, or somewhere in there. But 15 to 20% is all it takes to wreak havoc. Anyway, let's listen to a little bit more of this Good Liars thing. If you don't know the Good Liars, they pretend to be Trump supporters all the way when they go to these events, and it's just the best. He broke character for this dude. He has a give, send, go, apparently. Goal is 15,000. He got 1,200. Help Brandon rebuild after J6 injustice. This give, send, go, it's like go send me or GoFundMe kind of, except it's for right wingers. It's from, when did this come out? This specific one. So he's still receiving money from it from 3 days ago, from 30 days ago. Most recent one was 1 day ago. Give, share, or pray. You can hit pray if you choose. Wow, dude. And he's holding up his picture of him sitting behind Anthony Fauci. What a colossal scumbag, honestly. High-functioning Asperger's, he says. He suffers from autism, high-functioning Asperger's. I used to own and operate 2 companies in upstate New York prior to my life being ruined. Well, who ruined it exactly there, Brandon? I'm reaching out to ask for your help as I rebuild my life after years of wrongful imprisonment, ongoing legal struggles, countless obstacles. So he spent 3 years in jail. He was released May 20th, 2024. So this must be very recent. Here we go. It says, I've been required to remain within 50 miles. Wait. I've been required to remain within 50 miles of Washington, D.C. Okay, I haven't heard that. I guess because he's on probation. Interesting. 7 hours from my home in Niskayuna, New York. I don't think so. He could probably get special permission to live elsewhere, in my personal opinion, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. During this time, I've been blessed to assist at the Eagle's Nest, a D.C. home led by Mickey Whithoft, the mother of Ashley Babbitt. Love that he's just randomly doxing this officer who was doing his job. And Nicole Reffitt, the wife of Guy Reffitt, the first January 6th defendant to go to trial. The Eagle's Nest served as a lifeline for J6 families and defendants, and it'll continue to do so until we all go our separate ways. On March 1st, 2025, mission accomplished. That's when it ends. March 1st, 2025? It provided housing, food, and transportation for those coming to D.C. for court appearances or for recently released defendants as they transition back home. That's a really interesting idea. I love it if it weren't being provided to insurrectionists against the U.S. government who should, honestly, I don't believe in the death penalty, but if I did, maybe it would be for those people. The home also offered emotional support and advocacy. Emotional support? What are you, gay? You need emotional support? Beta! And some emotional support and advocacy, attending congressional hearings and meeting with representatives to fight for fair treatment and the release of those still incarcerated. Wow. So he's been staying with some people in D.C. is what I'm reading, the Eagle's Nest, quote unquote. And now he has to be out on his own. This eagle has to fly. He's being kicked out of the nest, if you will. And he needs money. And he's only raised $1,200. I like that. I'm happy about that, I think. I'm enjoying that very much. I think I'm enjoying the fact that this dude is gonna fall flat on his face. And something tells me he did not own and operate 2 companies in upstate New York. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Oh, they're doing the Trump dance where it looks like he's at a party enjoying the company of 2 men next to him, you know? Yeah, that's the Trump dance.
We are here at CPAC 2025.
She wasn't doing it very well. She must not be very experienced.
And just yesterday, the President of the United States took the stage here, wielding a chainsaw, saying he was going to cut through the bureaucracy.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
And then letting out a squeal. And then tomorrow, Donald Trump's going to speak here. So a lot of exciting events here at CPAC.
I wonder how they get in, like the good liars. They never disrupt. They never cause any issues. They just go there and pretend to be all in. And they're so good at it. Oh, my God. You think that people would pick up on this by now?
Turns off.
And so you would vote for Donald Trump in a 3rd term?
Yeah, I think I would.
And what do you think about the Constitution?
I'm a constitutionalist.
What about the 22nd Amendment that would prohibit him from running for a 3rd term?
Yeah, it would bother me, but...
It would bother me, she says? Are you kidding me? It would bother me? Hold on, let me just look up the text of the... Okay, the text of the 22nd Amendment. No person shall be elected to office of president more than twice, and no person who's held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which someone... So basically, he can't run for a 3rd term. And he said, would you vote for him for a 3rd term? And she said, yes, I would vote for him in 2028 for a 3rd term. What about the 22nd Amendment? You know, whatever. I'm a constitutionalist, but whatever. the cognitive dissonance in these people's heads.
Think about the Constitution?
I'm a constitutionalist.
What about the 22nd Amendment that would prohibit him from running for a third term?
Yeah, I would bother me, but
I'd do it anyway.
But you would still get your vote.
you would still get my vote.
Would you like to see Donald Trump run for a third term?
Of course.
Yeah, would you like to see Donald Trump run for a third term?
No.
Okay.
George Washington, when
He's telling the George Washington story. I appreciate the hell out of that. The one person that gets it there. Why is he even there? Why is he wearing a MAGA hat in the first place? I'm sorry, a MAGA headdress. Why is he wearing that? Trump violates the Constitution constantly. Why is this the thing you care about? George might also be a spy law. Yeah, maybe. I don't think so, but could be. That's possible, I suppose. George Washington served 2 terms as the first president, and at the end was asked, are you going to continue to serve? And he said, no, I'm passing it on because we want a president, not a king. And ever since then, every president has given up the position after 2 terms. Not because they legally had to, but out of respect for democracy. George Washington is the one that is considered to have decided that this would be a constitutional democracy rather than a monarchy. And Trump is erasing that, basically. Even if Trump serves for a 3rd term and then he dies and it's not a big deal, it's symbolically destroying the democracy. It's destroying all of the cultural stories and the history and everything that the United States ever stood for. The only person to ever serve more than 2 terms was FDR, and it was during a time of war. Most countries have laws where you can't change leadership during a time of war. And it's because that's when the country is most vulnerable to attacks, to physical attacks, to propaganda attacks, things like that. So we don't have that law here. And FDR probably should have stepped down after 2. But if anyone was going to do it for any reason, then his reason was the most reasonable, if you will. Anyway, if Donald Trump served 3 terms or more, it would destroy democracy completely. It would be symbolically destroying democracy permanently. It would be turning us into a monarchy in spirit, if not in fact. This is the point.
No. George Washington, when he first began his presidency, people were afraid that he would basically become a monarch, and some wanted him to be, because that's kind of what they knew.
Do you think that would be a bad thing if there was a monarchy here in America, I assume?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Donald Trump recently posted, "Long live the king."
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think he's excellent at trolling.
What's it going to take for these people to realize that he's not trolling? What is it going to take for what would he have to do to lose this guy's vote? He understands. He knows the Washington story. He knows that why we don't want a monarchy. What is it going to take? Is there anything that can pierce that gigantic lead ball you call a head?
And I think a lot of people. I think that.
But is that like funny for the president to be like?
Rhetoric?
Yeah, there you go. You took the words out of my mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you think that having a king goes with the American way of life?
It's just like they calling Elvis the king. King of rock and roll. Michael Jackson's the king of rock and roll. What's the difference? He's the king.
What is the difference? He's a political leader. He is an actual literal political leader. Elvis was not a political leader. It was figurative. It is literal with Donald Trump. Are you kidding me?
King of the presidency for us.
Like he's the king of the presidency.
He is the king of presidency, and I believe that's what he was referring to.
What does that even mean?
And he is our king.
And that's playing to the top of your intelligence. You don't think he meant that he was the king?
Oh, no.
Would you like to see Donald Trump run?
This is what I find so fascinating. It's like these people very clearly don't want that, right? But what happens when he declares himself king? He effectively has, but what if he starts wearing a crown? Is it going to click with him then? Probably not, right? They're just going to say, oh boy, is he good at trolling. He even got a crown. It even has real diamonds and gold and everything. He is so good at trolling.
A 3rd time?
Certainly, I think constitutionally he can do that if he chooses.
No, he can't. That is literally the opposite of what you just said. Constitutionally, he cannot run for a third term.
He can run for a third term?
As far as I know,
you are incorrect.
If it's non-contiguous terms, it's sort of one of those netherworlds.
No, it isn't. It's very clear in the Constitution. What he's talking about is a bill that was passed in Congress, basically with the aspiration to be a constitutional amendment, where a MAGA diehard basically wrote this amendment to make it so that Trump and only Trump could run for a third term. Obama couldn't, because he served 2 consecutive terms, like one after the other. Obama did. And Trump hasn't served 2 consecutive terms. What does consecutive have to do with anything? Why would that be a part of the equation at all? So this dude is trying to weasel his way into giving Trump and only Trump a way of being president for a third term. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.